Welcome to the second follow along. I hope you are well, and today we'll be making some real things. So you have to follow along with me. Okay, so again, I'll start off with some basics. This is where we finished the first video. We had a cuboid, which we have saved as a file name called cuboid. Let's look at the file again. So you can see the file is there. Um, let's go ahead and close that data panel for now. Yep. So that's how you can bring it back and close it. Uh, Keep it closed. It will give you more space for working. Okay, so first thing is, which is really important, is the units. Even before you start sketching a single line, you should always make sure that the units that your software is working in, that Fusion is working in right now, is the one that you expect it to be. For example, by default, I always like to work in millimeters, and that's what I would suggest you to work in as well. Okay, so we'll be using metric units. Keep the units as mm. If they're not, go ahead, click on this, and you can change them to millimeter, right? Okay, so assuming you've done that already. Some other things that I should show you is something at the bottom here. So you see that we've got some play button, some next, forward, to the end, to the starting. These are used basically to record whatever you are doing in Fusion. Okay. So for example, if you remember from the first video, I made a torus first and then I made a cuboid, right? So it's recorded as it is. And the purpose for this is, for example, in future, I want to come back to some steps. Maybe I'm making a building or something, and I just want to change a very initial step I took. Maybe, for example, I made something 5 centimeters long, and now I want to change it to 4 centimeters. Doesn't necessarily mean that I want to delete everything that I've done after it and then come back, make it 4 centimeters, and go back and build everything again. There should be a way to just modify that one setting or one value, and everything gets adjusted according to it itself. So for example, let me turn on the torus that I had made. Okay, I've turned that on. So I had given some dimensions. Don't worry about how do we do that. We'll cover those basics in the next session. But just to show you what design history can do is that you can see that the torus is here. If I right click on that and I go and click on edit feature, it will allow me to change any value that I gave initially. So for example, if I want to change its inner diameter instead of 65 to, let's say, 40, I can do that. And it just does that. It doesn't affect anything else, right? So I did not have to remove the cuboid for to make a change in the torus which I made before that. Okay, so that's one thing. So you can keep this design history on. You can turn it on and off if it's not already there from here. So if you click on the name of your file and come to the very bottom, don't worry about all the other settings. If you come to the very bottom, you can turn it off or on if it's not already on from the very bottom here. Okay, so let's go ahead and learn another, let's say, command, which is to remove the things. For example, now I don't really want the torus, so I'll just click on the body. Another thing I should mention before that, that every solid that you create in Fusion is called a body. And later in this tutorial, this follow along, we will see that sketches have a separate folder called sketches. Right. Okay, so let's just go ahead and delete this body. Maybe you won't have it right now, but just look at this one. So there are two ways, either it's remove or delete. Usually, I would suggest you to always remove something, because if you delete it, it will affect everything after that's connected to it. So remove is a safer option. Okay, so that just removes it. Now we are left with the cuboid. Let's go ahead and quickly remove that as well. You can see that delete works as well. So let's try and do delete this time. Okay. The next thing that we have here is the views. So there are different views as we saw before, top, front, right. What you can do is you can make your own view. So for example, if in one drawing you have to go, let's say, to this angle again and again, you can just create a name a view of your own, name it whatever. Let's call it custom for now. And let's say if I'm on the home view and I want to go back to the same view, instead of wanting to scroll and zoom and orient properly again and again, I can just click on custom and it will take me to that view. Okay, so let's delete that as well. The next thing over here, and this is by the way called a tree. In the tree is the origin. So you can turn it on and off, but that's basically your origin of the whole drawing. Again, because we are working in 3D space, we have three axes, which is X, Y, and Z, and we have three planes as well. So these very tiny planes you can see over here. This is the XY plane, this is the ZY plane, and this is the XZ plane. Okay, so we can turn it on and off. Let's leave it on for now. Again, you can see that because I deleted the cube is no longer in the history, but the torus is, and with the remove command. So you can see that how it works, right? So if you delete something, it just goes away from the history as well, and thereby it will affect everything in the history. Okay, so let it be there. It doesn't affect any of the things that we are going to do today. Okay, so there are many things that you can do in Fusion, and honestly, we don't even have to learn all of them. Let's just keep on the design workflow for now. These are different workflows. So we stay on the design workflow. If you've changed it by mistake, just change it back. Over here, you can see you can work with solids, surfaces, mesh, sheet metals, plastic, and some other add-ons and utilities. Let's just keep it on solid for now. And let's start by creating a sketch. Okay, you can click it here, but what I want you to do is click on create instead, so you can see what are the other options. Okay. Now, before I click on create sketch, there's one thing I can tell you, and it's good to know, but I don't know if you want to customize it according to your liking or not, but you can create your own shortcuts in this. So it's very easy to create a new shortcut. For example, to create a sketch, either I'll have to come and click here every time, and because there's no shortcut already existing, for example, we can see for extrude it is E, for hole it is H, which we can modify by the way. But for sketch, there's no shortcut. So we can click on these three dots. We can click on change keyboard shortcut, and let's just press S. And if that shortcut is already reserved for something else, it will give you a warning here. So again, don't use that, obviously. Then let's call it K, okay? Which is a weird one, but for now, let's just keep it like that, okay? And now, instead of going and clicking there, let's just try and press K on the keyboard. And did you see what happened? Now, my cursor is stuck to choosing a plane. Okay, before choosing a plane, I'll point you to look over here. You can see that sketch is selected, which means that I'm already in that command. Again, to go out of it, just press escape, okay? Let's try doing it again and look what there's a like a notification near my cursor which says select a plane or a planar face. So let's go and do that. Let's click on the XY plane and then we are in the top view, and suddenly all the commands on the top changes. We can do whatever in this. We can create a 2D sketch, and for that matter, we can also create a 3D sketch, which we will see later. But let's just focus on 2D sketches for now. But whatever we draw here, we can, to go back to the solid, we can either finish the sketch or click on solid. Okay, so let's just start by making a very simple thing, which is a line, right? Line has a shortcut L. So I'm just going to show you here, but let's try and practice using the shortcuts, right? So that we learn them. So let's press L, click anywhere, and this is where the snapping, if you remember, there was a setting called snap to grid that comes in handy. So it will allow you to snap to a particular point, which is really helpful sometimes when you don't really want to measure everything. But let's just draw a random size for now. I'm not even looking at the dimensions. So I've clicked on that, and it is like a sticky command. It's just stuck to our cursor. So let's just press escape and let's zoom into our line. Okay, let's see what has happened. So we've created a blue line, And it is blue because it's not fixed right now. It doesn't have dimensions because we did not define it. To do that, there's another command called dimension, which has a shortcut D. So let's quickly go and press D, click on our line, and then if you drag out from there, it will allow you to change the dimension. So let's make it 5 mm. Okay. So you can either type 5 mm, but because we've already set the units to mm, everything will be in mm by default. So if you press 5, your line is 5 mm long now. Okay, really good. Good stuff. Now, what we can do is, what I can quickly show you is that there are two types of lines in Fusion. There's a solid line, which is a line that you will be using for sketches, but there are sometimes lines that you just want for reference, and those lines are called construction lines. Um, so if you just press escape to come out of the dimension command first, click on the line so that your line is selected. You can see it's now highlighted, and you click on the construction. You can see that it has become a dotted line. You can't really see it because it is also overlapped by the x-axis. But if you select it, you can see that it is a dashed line. Okay, so we've created a dashed line or a construction line which is 5 mm long. Let's change it back to the normal line. Again, the shortcut for changing the line type is X, I think. Yeah. So if you press X with the line selected, you can quickly toggle between the type of line. There's another line called center line, which is good if you're making drawings and all that. You can explore that. So let's make something uh, on top of this line. Okay. So we'll come at rectangle again, but I want you to explore. Let's say I'm just choosing. Let's choose an arc. Okay. So let's make an arc on top of this line. So there are three ways you can make an arc. And Fusion is really good at teaching you how to use a command. So it just explains if you hover on anything, it says creates an arc using 3 points. Select the start point, end point, and then a point on the arc. Okay, so let's do that. So let's select this command. We remember we have to choose the start point. It even reminds you. You select the first point, you select the second point, and then we just need to choose a third point, and which can be anywhere. Wherever you click next will be a point on your arc, and you can see the arc changing in real time. So what we are trying to achieve here is that we want an arc which is 2 mm above this line. Okay, so there are a couple of ways you can do. I'm just trying to show one way, let's say. So let's again use the construction line, okay, because we saw that it is something that we know how to use. So we've made a random line. Let's make it 2 mm long. And also because we know it's a construction line, let's quickly make it as a construction line. So this is what I want you to try. I want you to not go to this bar now and do these steps using the shortcuts, right? Changing it to a construction line, making the dimension, making the line using the L command. And now let's just go back to the arc, 3-point arc, finish our arc that we wanted to achieve. Okay, what we have seen now is that we have a light blue shaded area, which is called a closed region. And this basically is a surface that you can work with in 3D. So this is called a closed sketch. So if you want to work with a sketch, and especially some commands like extrude, which we will see in future, you would want to make a closed sketch for that. Okay, let's make a rectangle. You can try making with a 2-point rectangle. The shortcut is R, but let's make a center rectangle. Okay, so you click on the center, you just drag it away, and so you literally click on a center point and another vertex. Now there are some things called constraints, which let's try and use. So rectangle doesn't have equal sides, but a square is also a rectangle which has equal sides. So let's try and make the sides of the rectangle equal, and immediately it turns into a square. Wow, that's easy. Let's try and dimension it as well. So it's 4.3. Let's make it 5 mm. So what if we create something and we want to remove a part of it? Okay. To show you better, let's try and make a circle into it. So let's click on a circle, select the center point, and you can really just click on the one of the edge of this square, and there you've got a circle and a square. Now what we want to do is remove this quadrant of the square, and for that there's a command called trim, which you can see here, but again let's try and use the shortcut. Okay, so T is the command. So as soon as you click on T, it will ask you to select any line that you want to remove. And Fusion is really good at predicting what you want to remove. So it won't remove the whole line, but only remove partially first. So if you click on that, you can see that just disappeared. And same way you can remove this part. Same way you can remove this part of the circle. And let's just make, again, we can also remove the construction edges, but it doesn't really affect, right? Okay, so that's some of the commands that we have covered. Again, we are still in the trim command, so let's just press escape, get out of it. You can try and explore polygon. I'll highly encourage you to do that. We can also try and make an ellipse, which is more or less like a circle, but instead of that, you will be defining two of the values. Okay, so I want you to show another thing, which is basically giving the dimensions when you, at the same time when you're designing it, rather than using the dimension command and doing it later, which saves you a little bit of time, but sometimes knowing both the things is really good. Okay, so I'm going to click here and we are making an ellipse, right? So I want you to define the first axis or the dimension of the ellipse. So let's just call it again 5 mm. And you can see as soon as I haven't clicked anything yet, I've just clicked on 5 and I can still control the other thing. So the two dimensions or values that I can control while drawing an ellipse is the dimension at the angle of that axis. So I fix it at 5, and if I want to change the angle, what I'll do is press tab and that takes me to the angle. So let's make it nice 180 straight. Yeah. And if you want to change the 5 again to let's say a 6, I press tab again and click on 6. Again, this is all being done from a keyboard, not a mouse. So I haven't done any other click after clicking the middle point of that axis, right? So now I have done the first axis. Let's just click and make the second axis. So you see how nice and easy it is. Now let's just make the second axis equal to, I don't know, let's make it 2. Okay, so that's your ellipse. And you can see that the dimensions are already there. You don't have to use the dimension command later to make it according to your liking. Okay, one really, you can explore the slot command as well, but one really important one that I want you to know is a spline. Okay, spline is basically a curved line which you can control and draw using two ways. Again, as if you see here. So there are two types of splines. There's a fit point spline and a control point spline. Fit point is basically what it means. Wherever you click a point, the Fusion software will try to draw a curved line between those 2 points, like a curved smooth line. Okay, so let's just try and click some points randomly in space. Yeah, and you can even try and cross the points. And the green line you see is basically Fusion's effort of trying to make a smooth line out of all the points that you've created. Now, a really important thing here is that the line is not yet created. It's just something that Fusion is predicting is will be a good fit. So if you press escape right now, everything you've drawn will be gone. So how to keep the spline that we just made? So after making a spline or defining the points, you have to press the stick. Okay, so it will create the line in space. Great, that's spline. um, what else? Yes, this is really nice, so we can write text as well. So just click on text, click a point where you want to insert the text, and then create a text box. If you know, like a text box in MS Word if you've used that. So you make a text box and it comes a really big size. This is basically the default size that Fusion uses. You can reduce it, obviously. Let's just change it to text. You can make it curved and do all the fancy stuff. You can change the font if you want. But let's just make it a little bit smaller. Let's say 2 mm. Okay. And you can make it center aligned, flip, and all that. You can even rotate it. So let's just keep it like that. Again, we're just trying to explore different things. We're not right now trying to create a particular drawing or anything. We're just learning different commands that are there. Yep. Okay, so we've got text. This will be really good if you want to include your name on the CAD model that you've made. Then there's another command called mirror. I'm trying to show you all of them so that you have a good idea. So for using a mirror, we'll quickly create a line, right? Because for mirroring something, we need a mirror plane for 3D and a mirror line for 2D. So we'll create a line, just a random line, make it a construction line. Don't really has to be a construction line, but just because we can and we should, let's make it a construction line. And now I just quickly went there, clicked on mirror. It gives me a dialog box here, which asks me to select the objects that I want to mirror. So let's select this nice figure that we drew and select the mirror line. And you can see another mirrored image appearing, right? Very easy, very intuitive. There are something called patterns, which we will see in 3D as well. But because it exists in 2D, I would like to show you something called a circular pattern. So we'll just create, let's say, let's select this object, right? And what I would like you to do is to select, I don't know, select the center point. Yeah, we can select how many we want to make. So what you want to see here about the center point, you're making a pattern and especially a circular pattern. You can make, like, I don't know, make 10 and you can see multiple of those appearing. But it will be better if we make it at a farther point. Let's say let's make that pattern about this point. Okay, let's close that and select this point, right? So you can see that I have now 10 petals, let's call them petals, and it looks like a flower. So I have 10 petals as soon as I click OK. So that's a really nice and easy way. I know it looks very mixed up because we have so many figures and sketches going on one on top of other. So let's just quickly do undo. So I just want you to know that something like that exists. And another command is project, which we will see when we start doing 3D. Okay, let's remove everything. Okay, so that is a good opportunity to show you how to select the things. So I'll turn the origin off so that we have a clearer workspace. And there are two types of selections that you can do. So just notice this. So if I click over here, if I click my left mouse button and drag it towards the right, I see a box with a blue line and an orange fill color. But if I bring that towards left hand side, you see a dashed line with a yellow box. Okay, so there's a reason why it is different. And let's see that. And it's really useful actually. So for example, if I want to delete this whole uh, I'm moving it by mistake, I'll show you that as well. But for example, if I want to select this part, I can just very carefully drag on top of it, select all of it. You can see that once it's selected, it shows highlighted and press delete to remove it. But what if I just want to delete, let's say, this petal, the main petal that we made, but not the second one. And I have too many lines going on. So what I want to do is I'll start selecting from here, but you can see that only these two edges got selected, right? This curve didn't get selected. And the reason for that is that when I was making the box, my curve was not fully inside the orange box. And that's what orange selection means, that if you want to select something, it has to be completely in the orange box. And then it will select the whole thing. So now you can see that. And if I want to select the whole thing, I'll have to essentially use the yellow selection. And whatever even partially comes in the yellow selection box gets selected. So you can see that the construction line was not fully into it, but still it got selected because it was part of that. Okay, so let's look at some other commands very quickly. Let's look at fillet, and fillet is basically to curve any corners, sharp corners, right? So I can select the first line and the second line, and then I can define a radius of curvature, let's say 1 mm, and you can see that a very nice curve is formed there. Then we can make chamfer as well. Chamfer is basically something similar to fillet, but it's not a curve, it's a flat edge that's created, which will be used in 3D for a lot of cases. Then let's look at offset. So offset is a really good command if you want to make something concentric. So let's select this curve that we made, and you can see another line coming parallel to it. And this is basically to make offset curves essentially. And you can select how far inside or outside you want it. Let's say -5 and click OK. And you can also use the flip command to change the direction quickly, by the way. Okay. Next, we have extend. And to demonstrate that, let me make a line from here to here, just a rough line. Okay. And for example, I wanted my line to reach this curve, but I did not do that properly. Essentially, I can use the extend command and Fusion will try to predict where could that line go next. And it extends it to that line. And if I use the same command again, it takes it to that offset curve. Great. Same, you can use the break command as well. One very important command is move and copy. So as I showed you by mistake last time, you can just click on the object. There are different ways of moving something, but which we will cover in detail in 3D. But you can, for sketches, you can drag it on the XY plane. You can also rotate it. If you just keep on the first move type, that's fine. You can rotate it as well about its center. Okay, so what I want you to do is to explore all the constraints in this session. Okay, try to make lines, make some constraints, and see if it works for you. And I hope you got the gist of it, how to use the commands, how to make some sketches. And let's finally just show you that how to close a sketch. So if we click on finish sketch, we can see that our sketches are done. It's on the XY plane and that's it. Okay, so see you next time. We'll start making something in 3D